Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Librarian Sarah.
I'm Librarian Racine.
And today we are going to discuss 1,000 Acres by Jane Smiley, which I gotta say I had a little bit of a hard time getting into, but then once I was forced to read it, I actually really enjoyed it. It gave me lots of feelings, and I feel like that's always really telling about how good a book really is. Like, I've experienced the full range. But Racine, tell us a little bit about what this book is about.
Well, 1,000 Acres came out in 1991. It's the story about a farmer with 3 daughters. 2 of the daughters live on the farms and farm along with their father and their husbands. And it's 1970s, so there's like problems with the economy at that time. Banks weren't as solvent as they should have been. Dad's getting ready to retire. What does he do with the farm? So, and you've got this other sister who doesn't live on the farm anymore. She's a lawyer. She's the prized golden child, the baby that they've all doted on.
Mm-hmm.
Is any of this sounding familiar to you?
Gee, I think it sounds a little like King Lear.
It's totally King Lear. And it was beautiful, I thought,
yeah.
the way she did it. And yeah, in the beginning it's slow.
And it took me a second to get used, I think, to Smiley's writing style. Like there was one, and there's that stream of consciousness kind of style, which I thought it might be, and then it kind of evolved from there. But there was a couple of paragraphs where it was like 2 whole sentences and a really long paragraph, and I just had to be like, what did I just read? But anyway, it's worth it. So keep going past that point, because then
once you get into the main story, you get sucked in,
yes.
and it's hard to put it down. Because talk about a subject that's timeless. You have parents growing older. How do they retire gracefully? How do you get them situated in a place that's comfortable for them and feasible for the kids? Because King Lear, in his play, he sits his daughters down. I love the beginning of it because it's like he turns to his daughters and he's like, okay, which one of you loves me the best?
Right.
And the first daughter gets up and says, oh, I love you as far as east as to west. And then the second daughter gets up and says, oh, I love you from here to the moon. And the third daughter gets up, the baby, the golden child, and says, I love you because, you're my dad. And it's, I'm only doing what's meet and proper. And, no more, no less. And it was like, I loved Cordelia because her honesty, she speaks honestly, but she makes her dad mad and it kicks her out.
Well, because she doesn't flatter him unnecessarily. She's just like, cut and dry. And I, even though King Lear's a mad king and he's crazy, I feel like I sympathized with him a little bit. Because his daughters were actually evil, except for Cordelia. Regan and Goneril were bad people. But in this story, it's told from
the perspective of Regan, the oldest daughter.
Yeah, so Virginia, Jenny, she's a very sympathetic character. The whole book, I liked her. I felt bad for her. She had a hard time, and she was struggling, and she never got out, and she kind of,
she couldn't have kids.
Was the martyr. She had a little bit of a martyr complex that doesn't exactly pronounce itself until later. And then all of a sudden, are we going to spoiler alert this?
We'll wait on it then.
Okay.
But because there are tons of spoilers that we want to talk about.
Yes.
So we won't. We will give you fair warning on it. But, the other thing too is that, since it's from the daughter's perspective, it's like in Lear, I didn't realize, I loved Lear when I first read it in college. And then I read 1,000 Acres and I'm like, whoa, talk about turning this all on its ear. This book really does follow Lear.
It does. And I actually, after I was finished with it, I went and looked up some of just a quick review of King Lear's plot points, because I read it in college, so few years ago. And there's all these things that I totally forgot. Like, I was trying to figure out who was the jester, right? Because there was the fool, but the fool was a very peripheral character in here.
Yeah.
And then who everybody else was. And it really, really follows King Lear in a way that, I mean, just kind of blew my mind.
Wait a second. Who did you think the fool was?
Well, at first I thought it was maybe Harold, because, you know, he makes such a spectacle.
Yeah, he's the friend of
right.
the dad.
And then I thought, well, maybe Jess, because, like, Jester. Because he comes
Who's
in.
a love interest.
And, well, yeah, you know.
Him and Ginny have a flirtation, and he kind of wakes her up, I think.
True.
To an extent. You know, she's a married woman, and here he is.
Well, he's like this catalyst that they're all kind of continuing along in their unhappy,
yet stable
monotone lives.
Yeah.
And he comes in, he's like this injection of interestingness, which is a word that I just coined. Copyright Sarah Dixon. But the, you know, he injects their life with a little bit more color. And so I thought maybe he was the jester or the fool. But no, there's apparently a whole other subplot to King Lear that I forgot about. The Edgar Gloucester subplot, where he's like the long lost illegitimate son.
The prodigal son comes home.
Right.
And the prodigal son is loved, and the son that's been there, I mean...
And he kind of like gets involved with the sisters. And so anyway, there was just a lot more...
You know what, we're talking a lot about plot.
Yeah, that's true.
But really, it's one of those books where I think she does a beautiful way in portraying the people and the place with like this economy of words. My favorite quote was, "Most issues on a farm return to the issue of keeping up appearances. Farmers extrapolate quickly from the farm to the farmer. A farmer looks like himself when he goes to the cafe, but he also looks like his farm, which everyone has passed on their way to town." And this whole thing of, if your farm looks good, then you're probably taking care of it and you're a hard worker.
Well, an appearance, the whole theme of appearance goes throughout. Remember, like when they're going to court and the lawyer tells them that you have to keep up appearances, make sure your house is spotless, wear house dresses every single day of one of the hottest summers of the year, or of the, I don't know,
it was a hot
70s.
summer, yeah.
It was a hot summer. And anyway, so this whole idea of appearances. And then, can we talk about the spoilers yet?
No, we're only like 8 minutes in.
Okay.
It's okay. You know what? Let's talk about
appearances comes through all throughout the book. Take my word for it. No, hold on. I want to talk a second because you're talking about the farms and the appearances, and I want to talk about why Jane Smiley decided to place King Lear on a farm in Iowa in the 70s.
Because
I think it's a little bit brilliant.
It's totally brilliant.
But I want to know what your thoughts are. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, you've got this huge plot of land, 1,000 acres, that over generation, they have added to and built on. And, you know, it was all the way from the relatives, or, you know, the ancestors that came over from England, and they were getting 180 acres here and 200 acres here. I mean, really think about that. And then you have, it culminates to these three girls. One of them gets snubbed. Her dad slams the door in her face when they're going to talk about him handing over his empire.
Well, and she comes over being, you know, like, okay, I'm sorry that I offended you. I'm ready to make amends.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to lose this relationship. She really doesn't care about the land.
Yeah.
Much like Cordelia. But yeah, he slams the door right in her face. Oh, man. And I feel like Smiley had a real knack for writing those dramatic scenes.
Yeah.
Like, the thunderstorm scene.
Yeah.
Wow. Like,
King Lear gets stuck out in the thunderstorm after he can't go between his two daughters' realms. Well, here's Larry, the farmer, who has been driving all over Tarnation. That's his MO. He doesn't have any troops to take everywhere, so he takes his pickup and he goes all over the country, the countryside, and then he wrecks his truck being a drunk driver. And he's out in the rain, and it's a dramatic scene.
Oh, and he's
where
just like spitting insults to his daughters and calling them
hideous names, but
oh gosh, just like
and then
there's the weather, and he's so angry, and they just stand there. Oh, it was beautifully written, and it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it now. Okay, ready?
Yes. Well, and with
not that I'm cheering for the bad things that happened in this book, because there's some awful things that happened in this book. I'm just ready to dive in because it's like, whoa, you got to unpack the whole thing. Okay.
Well, and with Shakespeare, you have no inclination that Lear has done anything wrong in his life. Well, this book is from the oldest sister's point of view.
That's not exactly true. I mean, Lear was kind of a crotchety old man who wasn't super nice and who was totally vain. And I mean, the whole beginning of it, he is like inviting his daughters. He wants the flattery. He's not a good person. But he also ends up being kind of a sympathetic character because, I mean, he's going crazy.
He's a king that's ruled for a long time. I mean, can you blame him? He's built this kingdom for his daughters. Okay, fine. Anyways.
Go ahead.
Well, you find out that Larry, the farmer, has abused his daughters, sexually abused his daughters in the past, and
it just nope. But it's awful, right? So there's no way that this guy becomes a sympathetic character because he did this unspeakable act, right?
Right.
Multiple times, acts to both of his older daughters, and it's horrifying, and there's no way that they could forgive him. And you start to kind of see the motivation in some of their actions, but you also start to kind of see the madness coming out in the daughters, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, they have inherited some sort of madness from their father. And
well, you get something that's so big, and it's crazy how, I'm sorry, having a transition like that, I mean, it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And so people will fight. It's tough to reconcile who gets what piece of what.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's sad. It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the reason why she put it in 1970s Iowa is because she was looking for the most American thing she could find. And this was it. And this is how an American tragedy builds up. And it just
breaks your heart.
It breaks your, well, and it just blew my mind when I thought, oh my gosh, maybe this is the part that Shakespeare should have put into his play.
Yeah.
Maybe he was wanting us to connect the dots in his play.
And one reason that I found the two sisters so sympathetic as well is that they try to protect Caroline from this, right?
Yeah.
They knew that this was happening. They wanted to well, Jenny puts it away in the back of her head and doesn't remember it until later. But Rose knows, and they try to protect Caroline from this these horrors as she's growing up, and she does become the golden child. And so that was an interesting dynamic as well, because it seems like they took on this mothering role for her, except that they have no relationship. Like, they reared her like a baby doll and then sent her out into the world, and then that's it.
They were teenagers, though, too.
I know. I'm not.
I mean, they were ill-prepared to raise a girl.
Of course they were.
And...
But
so this is where she's talking about you feel all the feels, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I love this book. It's layer upon layer.
It really is so complex.
Genuine feelings. You've got, let's talk, I'm just going to brush over the topics, because you've got farming and what it does with the environment, and how farming is interchangeable with the environment. So that's a topic.
Right, because that theme runs all the way through, because Jenny is suffering from infertility, and we find out later that it's probably because of farming techniques, right? The runoff, the chemicals.
The boil water.
Why do you think Rose got cancer?
Yeah. Rose gets cancer. You've got sisters that are rivals and supports at the same time. This complex sister. I love those because, I mean, it is just not... a story that can tell that story is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And she does it wonderfully. Jane Smiley rocks. Are you looking at us that you have, do we have any comments so far?
Kathy's joined in, so we can say
Oh,
hi, Kathy.
hi, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Thanks for joining us. Wait,
Well-
if you had thoughts about this book, we would love to hear them and bring them into the conversation. So be sure to comment. Stephanie's monitoring that for us. But before you go on from the sisterhood thing, I just wanted to talk for just a second.
Yeah.
Didn't you think that there were so many references to how strong they were, right? So strong, Jenny and Rose, all together. They grew up together. They never got tired of each other. So many different things. And we're writing this from Jenny's perspective. Like, Jenny was trying to convince herself the whole time. Like, she was like, no, there's no way that this could ever break us apart. Except that
It does.
it does.
Yeah.
Like, she was trying to convince herself. It was such a tenuous, like, grasp or connection that this one thing that happens, and all of a sudden she wants to murder her sister. You spoiler alert already.
Yeah. Sorry.
It happens in King Lear though, so really,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true.
really, there's not a whole lot to be spoiled except for the abuse. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting. Like, as you're going through, you're like, wait a second, but she talked about it all the time. And then you have to think, which we were talking about earlier, you have to think, is Jenny a reliable narrator? She seems so competent the whole way
Yes.
through. And then, all of a sudden, she snaps.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, wait a second. Was it
Was
true?
she
Was all of
observing everything
this-
correctly?
Was all
Was
of
it-
this real? It just kind of blows your mind, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's-
it does.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I am fascinated with the whole well, it's a tough one, and I think a lot of people go through it, the transition in the family.
You mean the
And
retirement?
retirement, and who's going to take care of mom or dad? Who's the caregiver?
Mm-hmm.
And, clearly Larry, the farmer, has gone off the rails when he orders cabinets that
Right.
sit in the rain, $1,000 cabinets sit in the rain and
a
just get trashed.
$1,000 fancy, like, white sofa
White sofa.
on a farm.
Who buys a white sofa for a farm? I love that part of it. I mean,
get something? Oh, okay.
What was it? And then we also had and beyond the dynamics of family, with Harold, he's
Yeah.
a neighboring farmer.
Right.
His prodigal son, Jess comes home. He was a draft dodger.
Mm-hmm.
And Lauren is his other son. Lauren's been there. Lauren's worked. Lauren has been faithful. Lauren's two peas in a pod with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
But Dad wants to give the farm to Jess.
Or does he, though?
He keeps hinting
The
at it.
second that Jess comes back, though, he starts, like, collecting things, right? Like, Jess was a draft dodger. He wants to do organic farming. What? And he wants to do all of these things. Harold's not doing things the best way that he could. Jess knows so much more. And so I feel like Harold was, like, toying with him, right? It was the little carrot in front, and Jess was grabbing at it. And he was pitting the two brothers against each other. He had no intention of giving Jess that farm. And Jess probably knew it, and that's why he made a move on Rose. What? Boom. Opened it on.
Oh, man. Okay. You know what? You could probably read this and, text us a whole bunch of things that you would find fascinating about this book. I think this is why this book is a classic. Why I think this book will continue to go on, because it's so rich, and she has so many interesting parts to the book. And it's feminism, it's family, family.
But
It's
then you've got this
age,
whole
it's-
like good versus evil, and everybody's so complex that
Who is good?
Good. Who's evil?
Jinx.
Like, I know. Oh gosh, and that's probably the enduring theme through everything else. I think we actually covered most of the things that I wanted to do. Final thoughts. Do you think Smiley did justice to King Lear?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And if you love taking Shakespeare and turning it on its ear, we've made a list of different things that you might want to read, like Vinegar Girl
Okay.
by Ann Tyler. It's a retelling of The Taming of the Shrew.
Much like
Put
10 Things I
into-
Hate About You.
Right,
Probably
right.
minus Heath Ledger, but that's
Minus
fine.
Heath Ledger, but you can imagine him while you're reading it, I'm sure.
Thank you.
There's a set of videos and books. I put in, did you know that we have James Earl Jones as King Lear?
Wait, what?
I know, a DVD. James Earl Jones, voice of Darth Vader.
I might have to
Yeah.
grab that before you.
Yeah, no, let other people
Okay,
get a
fine.
chance. Anyways, we'll have that record set up in the comments here. So there's tons of great read-alikes. And what was it? I threw Cheryl Strait on there because I think she has like that Jane Smiley
Okay.
prose.
Sure.
I love the way Jane Smiley writes. God bless her. Anyways,
Well,
speaking of the way we love people writing,
are we ready to do this?
let's
Go.
do this real quick. Whoops. We got a book giveaway. Okay, do you remember Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman?
Oh, so watch the movie.
Okay, the book was so much better than the
They always say
movie.
that.
She's revisiting the story of the witches, and this is the story of Aunt Jet,
Okay.
and sorry, I loved Aunt Jet, Franny,
I probably would have remembered it better if I had read it.
and their brother Vincent,
Okay.
who wasn't in the movie.
Okay.
And so, anyways, it's coming out in October. You get to read it first, October 10th. So this is a giveaway. What we want you to do is comment and tell us which sister you're more like, Sally or
Oh.
Jillian.
You're talking about the
No, not that one.
Cordelia. I'm like Cordelia.
Are you a Sally or are you a Jillian, and why?
All right.
You know, don't go into details if you're a Jillian. Anyways, so tell us which one, and we will send this to the local library branch for you. And tell us about next month's book.
Perfect. I would love to. We are reading and discussing our big read book selection of the year. It's The Late Homecomer by Kao Kalia Yang. Did I say that correctly?
Close enough.
Okay. Who will actually be coming to town in October, so you'll have to join us for that. But first things first, we're going to read the book. It's all about her family making the immigrating from Thailand. They're Hmong, and they have been kind of moved around, and they end up immigrating to America. And so it's the journey that her family takes, and also the strength of her grandmother. It's kind of a love letter to her grandmother as well. So I have not read it, but I'm excited to, and I think I've heard lots of good things, and I think it's another one that's probably going to bring the feels.
Well, we're going to have the kickoff this weekend.
Oh, good point. The kickoff is September 23rd out at the Wichita Art Museum. It's at what, 2 o'clock? 2 o'clock at the Art Museum, big read kickoff. And you should grab one of these program guides because it's got all of our other featured events for the big read. We've got fancy new bookmarks, which I happen to be using, but I can take out now. And so anyway, yes, read the book. Now, I think we want to give away a copy of this book today as well.
So tell us, Late Homecomer, and your name. No questions on this one.
Yeah, we just want to give it out. And then we'll
Yeah.
send it to the branch of your choice. All right? So I think that covers everything for this week. We always run out of time. I feel like these could go for hours.
They
Or maybe
could.
you and I could just talk for hours, and people
We could
would
talk for hours and
not
people
really
would
want
not
to watch that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we'd still
I
love
love
to
talking
hear-
with you.
I love talking with you, and we'd still like to talk with you. So if you have continued thoughts on Jane Smiley's 1,000 Acres, we would love to hear them.
Kathy says the book never explains why the dad slammed the door on the attorney daughter, but then went to her at the end.
Well, because he loves her, and really she is
She's the
like
only
the apple of his eye.
I don't think
and-
it's that cute. I think it's
No, it's.
I think
it
it's because she's
is.
the only one that he hasn't burned a bridge with. That's what I think. Because
Ooh.
he has obviously burned bridges with the other two daughters. We don't know if he ever molested Caroline, but that's never made clear. And so she's the one that will still accept him for his crotchety, nasty old self.
I hate to say this, but I was a Cordelia.
Aww.
Well, I mean, as far as the youngest, the apple of my daddy's eye.
Same. I'm just kidding.
But I mean, really, it's like, I think there's like this whole dynamic of, you've got this close bond with the dad who you didn't have the drama maybe the older
Yeah.
kids
I
had.
think that's true.
And you are more likely to forgive him because I'm sorry, I'm
You just
really
kinda let
projecting
that
this, but
roll off your
I mean,
back.
it's a time thing, and the older girls had more time and they deflected a lot of
They did.
interaction between, oh gosh, now I can't, Corinne? The youngest daughter. Caroline and Larry.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good question, thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to maintain my position on that, but I think that's
I'm going to
nice
maintain my position on it too.
that you... Kathy, what did you think, though? Did you have thoughts on why he went back to Caroline after all of that? Write it in the comments, and Racine and I will catch up with you there. All right? We'll see you all next month when we discuss The Late Homecomer, and I guess we'll sign off. Bye!